Thank you, Ms. Manuel. The Secretary will please call the roll.
Roll call of members. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 22 senators present, Chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. President, before we proceed with the calendar for the day, we'd like to acknowledge some guests present in the gallery. Board Member Ram Revilla of Cavite, and the guests and companions of Ms. Andrea Manuel, our lyric soprano, Mr. President. We welcome the guests, Mr. President.
Welcome to your Senate.
Mr. President, I move that we dispense with the reading of the journals of the 26th session, Tuesday, September 24, 2024, and the 27th session, Wednesday, September 25, 2024, and consider them as approved.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved.
Mr. President, I move to consider on third reading House Bill number 9656. This is the bill on the Zamboanga Regional Medical Center. The printed copies were electronically distributed to the members of this chamber on October 30, 2024, in compliance with the 3-day rule of the Constitution. I've so moved, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, consideration of House Bill number 9656 on third reading is now in order. Senate Secretary is directed to read the title only of the bill and to proceed to roll call vote.
An act renaming the Mindanao Central Sanitarium in Paso Bolong, Zamboanga City to Zamboanga Regional Medical Center. Roll call vote. The Honorable Senator Binay, Senator Cayetano Alan, Senator Cayetano Pia, Senator De La Rosa, Senator Ejercito, Senator Estrada, Senator Gatchalian, Senator Go, Senator Ontiveros, Senator Lapid, Senator Legarda, Senator Marcos, Senator Padilla, Senator Pimentel, Senator Poe, Senator Revilla, Senator Tolentino, Senator Tulfo, Senator Villanueva, Senator Villar Cynthia, Senator Villar Mark, Senator Zubiri, the Senate President.
With 22 affirmative votes, 0 negatives, 0 abstention, House Bill number 9656 is approved on third reading. Majority Leader.
Mr. President, I move that we consider proposed Senate Resolution number 1209. This is the resolution congratulating and commending the Senate Sentinels basketball team. I retract my previous motion, Mr. President, due to the non-attendance yet of the Senate team.
As of yet.
As of yet. Except for the 1 minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session is suspended.
I move that we proceed with the reference of business.
Any objection? There being none, motion is approved. Secretary General is directed to proceed.
Messages from the House of Representatives. Letter from the House informing the Senate that on informing the Senate and certifying that on 25 September 2024, it passed House Number 10800, appropriating funds for the operation of the government of the Republic of the Philippines from January 1 to December 31, 2025, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
To the Committee on Finance.
Letter from the House informing the Senate that on 25 September 2024, it adopted House Concurrent Resolution 37. Concurrent resolution including the 10 enlisted men's barangays in the 2 legislative districts of the City of Taguig and Municipality of Pateros in order not to disenfranchise the registered voters therein, and confirming the increase to 12 of the number of councilors in each councilor district of the City of Taguig for purposes of fair and equitable representation, in which it requests the concurrence of the Senate.
To the Archives.
Bills on first reading, Senate Number 2841, further expanding the definition of the crime of rape, amending Act Number 3815 as amended, otherwise known as the Revised Penal Code, and for other purposes. Senator Revilla Jr.
To the Committee on Justice and Human Rights.
2842, increasing the salary grade level of social worker position from salary grade 11 to salary grade 15 and providing funds therefore. Senator Ontiveros.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization, Professional Regulation, Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Finance.
2843, strengthening the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program for Peace through Parent Leaders Adult Education Program. Senator Ontiveros.
To the Committees on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, Economic Affairs, and Finance.
2844, granting Starlink Internet Services Philippines, Inc., a franchise to construct, maintain, and operate satellite ground stations for the provision of broadband internet services in the Philippines. Senator Poe.
To the Committee on Rules.
2845, expanding the purpose and application of the Special Education Fund, amending Section 272 of RA 7160, the Local Government Code of 1991, and for other purposes. Senator Villanueva.
To the Committees on Local Government and Basic Education.
2846, regulating the practice of plumbing engineering in the Philippines, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. Senator Marcos.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, and Finance.
2847, creating the National Foreign Relations Council, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. Senator Tolentino.
To the Committees on Foreign Relations and Finance.
2848, establishing the Liwanag at Tubig Assistance Welfare Program for low-income households in times of calamities and natural disasters. Senator Tolentino.
To the Committees on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Finance.
2849, an act to further enhance the implementation of the lifeline rate, amending Section 73 of RA 9136, the IPIRA of 2001 as amended. Senator Tolentino.
To the Committee on Public Services.
2850, expanding the purpose and application of the Special Education Fund, amending Section 272 of RA 7160, the Local Government Code of 1991, and for other purposes.
To the
Senator
committee-
Cayetano P.
To the Committees on Local Government and Basic Education.
2851, providing for a minimum wage for farmers, appropriating funds therefore, and for other purposes. Senator Marcos.
To the Committees on Agriculture, Food and Agrarian Reform, and Finance.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution 1209, congratulating and commending the Senate Sentinels for winning its second consecutive championship at the UNTV Executive Phase of Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Rules.
1210, commending and congratulating Tatiana Kisha Mangin for winning the gold medal in the women's 49-kilogram category at the World Taekwondo Junior Championships held in South Korea from October 1 to 6, 2024. Senator Estrada.
To the Committee on Rules.
1211, directing the Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality to conduct an inquiry into the reported cases of women being trafficked abroad to become surrogates as part of an infant trafficking scheme. Senator Ontiveros.
To the Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality.
1212, congratulating and commending Tatiana Mangin for being the first Filipina to win the gold medal at the World Taekwondo Junior Championships. Senator Villanueva.
To the Committee on Rules.
1213, congratulating and commending Major Floren Herrera for becoming the first Filipino recipient of the Alexander R. Nininger Award for Valor at Arms. Senator Marcos.
To the Committee on Rules.
1214, directing the appropriate Senate committee to conduct an inquiry on the illegal engagement of 20 Filipinas in Cambodia for underground commercial gestational surrogacy. Senator Tulfo.
To the Committee on Women, Children, Family Relations, and Gender Equality.
1215, congratulating and commending the Philippine Paralympic delegation for their remarkable performance and valiant effort in the 2024 Paris Paralympics, bringing pride and honor to the country. Senator Cayetano P.
To the Committee on Rules.
1216, congratulating and commending Padel Filipinas and national team athletes Tao Yi Tan and Marian Cappadocia for being the first all-Filipino champions in the Asia-Pacific Paddle Tour. Senator Cayetano P.
To the Committee on Rules.
1217, directing the Senate Committee on Public Order and Dangerous Drugs to conduct an inquiry on the campaign against illegal drugs by the Duterte administration. Senator Go.
To the Committee on Accountability of Public Officers and Investigations.
Additional reference of business. Bills on first reading, Senate number 2852, further strengthening the incentives of private sector participation in public educational institutions, amending for the purpose RA 8525, the Adopt a School Act of 1998, Senator Villanueva.
To the Committees on Basic Education, Higher Technical Vocational Education, and Ways and Means.
2853, institutionalizing the career progression system for public school teachers, appropriating funds therefore, Senator Revilla Jr.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, Basic Education, and Finance.
2854, granting universal social pension to senior citizens, amending RA 7432, an act to maximize the contribution of senior citizens to nation building, grant benefits and privileges, and for other purposes, Senator Revilla Jr.
To the Committees on Social Justice, Welfare and Rural Development, and Finance.
2855, strengthening the practice of midwifery as a profession in the Philippines, appropriating funds, and for other purposes, Senator Marcos.
To the Committees on Civil Service, Government Reorganization and Professional Regulation, and Finance.
2856, promoting and supporting the development and growth of the Philippine film industry, creating for this purpose the Philippine Film Commission, defining its powers and functions, and for other purposes, Senator Estrada.
The Committees on Public Information and Mass Media, Ways and Means, and Finance.
2857, providing for the promotion of film and television tourism, creating the Film Philippines Office, providing funds therefore and for other purposes, Senator Estrada.
To the Committees on Public Information and Mass Media, Tourism, Ways and Means, and Finance.
2858, mandating the local government units to establish, maintain, and operate handog na oportunidad para sa edukasyon, centers, and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Estrada.
To the Committees on Higher Technical Vocational Education, Local Government, and Finance.
2859, strengthening the governance and management of the Philippine Science High School system, and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Estrada.
To the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, and Finance.
2860, providing for the establishment of a disaster food bank and stockpile for every province and highly urbanized city in the Philippines, providing for their maintenance and appropriating funds therefore, Senator Estrada.
Prior to referring this, may the Chair clarify that Senate Bill number 2859 is referred to the Committee on Science and Technology, Ways and Means, and Finance. And this current bill, read by the distinguished Secretary General, is referred to the Committee on National Defense and Security, Peace, Unification, and Reconciliation, and Finance.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
just a point of order. May we ask the technical group to have the bills being referred flashed on the screen, because apparently it was discontinued a few minutes ago, Mr. President.
The Secretariat is directed to comply with the request of the majority floor leader. Session is suspended. experiencing some technical difficulties, but I was informed that copies of the additional reference were distributed physically to the members as well. Because they might need, I was informed they might need a little more time to so reflect it on the screen. We are on page 3, no, page 2 of the additional reference.
Page 3.
Page 3, rather.
2861.
Secretary General is directed to proceed.
Senate number 2861, an act granting Philippine citizenship to Andres Miguel Soriano IV, Senator Tolentino.
To the Committee on Rules.
Senate number 2862, an act resetting the first regular elections in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, amending for the purpose Article 16, Section 13 of RA 11054, the organic law for the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao as amended. Senator Escudero.
To the Committee on Local Government.
Resolutions. Proposed Senate Resolution number 1218, directing the appropriate Senate Committee to conduct an inquiry on the present circumstances of the Center for International Trade Expositions and Missions, with the end in view of formulating policies for reforming it. Senator Pimentel III.
To the Committee on Trade, Commerce, and Entrepreneurship.
1219, congratulating and commending Muhammad Nur Kasib of the Philippine Science High School, Central Mindanao Campus, for securing the Philippines' first ever gold medal in International Astronomy Astrophysics Olympiad 2024 in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
1220, congratulating commending CJ Opiaza for finishing first runner-up in Miss Grand International 2024 held on October 25, 2024 in Bangkok, Thailand. Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
1221, congratulating and commending the Philippine Junior Men's Artistic Gymnastic Team led by Carl L. Yulo and Jacob Alvarez for their outstanding achievements at the JRC Artistic Stars Championships in Thailand. Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
1222, congratulating and commending the Philippine Men's Baseball Team for winning their 5th consecutive title in the East Asia Baseball Cup. Senator Lapid.
To the Committee on Rules.
1223, resolution honoring former Senate President Juan Ponce Enrile for his untiring service and contributions to the country and the Filipino people. Senator
To the
Escudero.
Committee on Rules.
Committee report 333 by the Committee on Tourism upon the recommendation of the subcommittee on Senate numbers 2797, 2790, 2435, 1854, and House numbers 5598, 8004, 6467, 10116, and 5282. Introduced by Senator Lapid, an act declaring the province of Pampanga as the culinary capital of the Philippines, recommending its approval without amendment, taking into consideration Senate numbers 2790, 2806, and House number 10634, sponsor Senator Villar M.
To the calendar for ordinary business. Majority Floor Leader.
So, President, I move for a 5-minute suspension of the session to enable the members of this chamber to go into a caucus as requested by the Honorable Senate President.
May I invite our distinguished colleagues to the lounge, not only to partake of a meal, but also to discuss, to be chaired by Senator Grace Poe, the chairperson of our Finance Committee, the upcoming schedule regarding the budget. Session is suspended.
As we resume our session, let us move forward with the spirit of resilience and dedication that has defined this House, especially during our recent response to the typhoon. Let us advance with a sense of duty, a commitment to service and dedication to people who have entrusted us with their hopes and aspirations. Today, as we stand on the right side of history, not just as witnesses, but as architects of change, the people are watching. History is watching. Let us not falter, for we hold the power to shape the destiny of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, we recognize that the House of Representatives cannot address every national issue alone. The Filipino people understand this as well. Nonetheless, as your humble steward, I urge each of you to make the most of our limited time before the 19th Congress adjourns and pass the most critical and urgent legislation. We were given this opportunity to serve the people with purpose, to uphold the principles of democracy, promote sustainable development, and as I emphasized in my closing statement last September, to build a Philippines where every citizen can live with dignity, opportunity, and hope. Esteemed colleagues, I call on you to cherish these remaining months of the 19th Congress, and together, let us bring it to a triumphant close. Tamang salamat, and may we move forward with courage, dignity, and unwavering faith in the triumph of truth above all. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas at mabuhay po tayong lahat. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to suspend session for a few minutes.
Session suspended. You are a credit to this institution, and I am immensely proud to stand with you today. Maraming salamat sa maagap ninyong pagkilos. Saludo po ako sa malasakit na ipinakita ninyo sa ating mga kababayan. As we reconvene for another legislative cycle of lawmaking, a task we have committed to undertake with urgency and passion, we are once again expected to provide effective solutions to the most challenging and complex problems facing our nation. Given this immense responsibility, we must embody analytical thinking, practical sensibility, and fervent enthusiasm to carry out our roles as lawmakers. Our track record speaks for itself, and with confidence I can say that the 19th Congress has consistently delivered successful results and exceeded expectations. As we approach the end of this remarkable term, we have demonstrated to the nation that no goals are not achievable and no aspirations are unattainable as long as we work cohesively and stand united. While Congress was in recess, President Marcos Jr. signed several laws identified as top priority measures by the Legislative Executive Development Advisory Council, the LEDAC. With the passage of RA number 12022, or the Anti-Agriculture Economic Sabotage Act, we are taking significant steps to protect our farmers from unscrupulous traders who exploit agricultural smuggling, profiteering, and hoarding. This new law will make food more affordable and accessible and provide better income for local farmers. Republic Act 12028, the Academic Recovery and Accessible Learning Adult Program Act, focuses on enhancing students' competencies in essential learning areas to ensure the quality of their education. We also welcome the signing of RA 12024, the Self-Reliant Defense Posture Revitalization Act, which aims to strengthen the country's defense sector by boosting domestic production of defense equipment. This law will address short, medium, and long-term needs for the defense equipment in the country. To ensure fair tax compliance, the passage of RA 12023, the Value-Added Tax on Digital Services Law, establishes a level playing field for both local businesses and international digital service providers in the digital economy. As we diligently work towards the conclusion of the 19th Congress, the House of Representatives has been instrumental in the enactment of 24 laws identified as priority measures under the LEDAC's Common Legislative Agenda for the 19th Congress. For the 28 House Representative priority measures targeted for passage by the end of the 19th Congress, only 2 remain pending with the committee amendments to the Agrarian Reform Law and the Foreign Investors Long-Term Lease Act. 26 measures have either been enacted into law or approved on third reading. As of October 31, 2024, 61 national laws and 62 local laws were enacted. 19 measures await the President's action, 5 conference committee reports were ratified, and 765 House bills, both national and local, were approved on third reading and are now pending Senate action. Our legislative agenda in the coming days will build upon the targets identified during our last session. We await the signing by the President of LEDAC priority bills for the 19th Congress, including the Create More Act, Philippine Maritime Zones Act, Enterprise-Based Education and Training, the EBIT Act, and the Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act. As the head of the Philippine delegation to the recent 149th Interparliamentary Union Assembly in Geneva, Switzerland, from October 12 to 18, 2024, we highlighted the crucial role of science, technology, and innovation in achieving sustainable development goals and fostering future peace. These are the primary drivers of transformation toward a prosperous, inclusive, and environmentally sustainable economy. The world is undergoing a digital revolution, and to maximize its benefits while mitigating its challenges, we must equip our nation with a comprehensive legislative arsenal. During the Association of the Southeast Asian Nations ASEAN Business Investment Summit held in Vientiane, Lao People's Democratic Republic, from October 6th to the 11th, 2024, we fully supported President Marcos Jr.'s assertion that the Philippines is an optimal investment destination. We commend President Marcos Jr. and his administration for their approach to reducing poverty and addressing food insecurity, leading to a notable reduction in self-rated hunger. The government reforms and programs are now yielding positive results. According to the August 28 to September 2, 2024 Tugon ng Masa survey published by Okta Research, self-rated poverty dropped by 5 percentage points, with an estimated 1.4 million Filipinos now considering themselves not poor. Self-rated hunger also declined from 16% to 11%, meaning approximately 1.4 million families no longer experience hunger. It is also noteworthy that while we have achieved stability and maintained peace and order without compromising due process or the fundamental human rights of any Filipino, there has been a significant reduction in crime across various categories. According to the Philippine National Police, from July 2022 to July 2024, there was a 61.87% decline in index crimes compared to the same period from 2016 to 2018, with 83,059 incidents recorded against 217,830 in the earlier period. The PNP also seized illegal drugs worth 35.6 billion pesos and arrested 122,309 individuals involved in drug-related offenses. Sustaining our economic recovery requires collaboration between the private sector, government, and academia. We must ensure that the Marcos administration's vision of a more equitable and prosperous Philippines becomes a reality. Through consistent efforts, we can further reduce poverty and provide more opportunities for our people to thrive. On the last day of our session in September, the House adopted House Resolution 2036, allowing 5 committees to conduct a joint inquiry and propose legislation to counteract massive smuggling and price manipulation of essential goods. This Quinta Committee, comprising the committees of Ways and Means, Trade and Industry, Agriculture and Food, Social Services, the Special Committee on Food Security, aims to mitigate hunger and ensure food security. Despite our efforts, many Filipinos still face food insecurity. And according to the United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization, the Philippines ranks first in food insecurity in Southeast Asia, with around 51 million Filipinos experiencing moderate to severe food insecurity. This highlights the urgent need for comprehensive action. This year, our nation has endured the impacts of both El Nino and extensive flooding, causing severe damage to the agricultural sector and affecting countless livelihoods. In response and under the President's directive, the 2025 national government budget will prioritize a strategic shift from traditional flood control to comprehensive water management initiatives, including water impounding systems to harvest rainwater, mitigate flooding, and ensure water availability during the dry season. These projects aim to create a more resilient and sustainable future for our communities. Additionally, in empathy with the plight of our less privileged countrymen, we introduced amendments to the 2025 General Appropriations Bill, earmarking 293.23 billion to enhance social services, strengthen social safety nets, and ensure food security. This is in addition to the 591.8 billion allocated by the Department of Budget and Management for cash assistance to indigent families. The enhanced budget will support programs such as assistance to individuals in crisis situations, AICS, the Ayuda sa Kapos ang Kita Program, AKAP, the Sustainable Livelihood Program, Tulong Panghanapbuhay sa ating mga disadvantaged displaced workers, TUPAD, the Government Internship Program, Tertiary Education Subsidy, and Tulong Dunong programs, among others. To address the continuing issue of safe and accessible shelters during calamities, the House of Representatives filed and deliberated on House Bill number 7354. Subsequently, in September, we adopted Senate Bill number 2451, or the Ligtas Pinoy Centers Act, as an amendment to the House bill, and we await the enrolled copy from the Senate for signing. This legislative measure is essential for protecting communities during disasters by establishing and maintaining safe, fully equipped, and permanent evacuation centers in every city and municipality. In continued support of the Marcos administration's initiatives, the House of Representatives has adeptly navigated its way towards fulfilling its goals. Beyond crafting laws and in our quest to provide effective legislation, we established the House Quad Committee to conduct joint public hearings on critical issues, including extrajudicial killings, illegal drugs, Philippine offshore gaming operators, POGOs, alleged irregularities in the procurement processes and unlawful contracts, as well as the illegal tactics employed by foreign nationals in our country. I would like to highlight the monumental work of the Quad Committee, a collective effort led by some of the brightest and most dedicated members of this House, including the young guns and others who have dedicated their time, energy, and conviction to this cause. The Quad Committee represents not just a legislative effort, but embodies our shared commitment to truth, justice, and accountability through their outstanding ability to elicit truth from even the most reticent witnesses and sources, combined with significant information gathered from confidential channels. The Quad Committee members have demonstrated a burning resolve to identify and remedy deficiencies in our laws. The Quad Committee's hearings have heightened public awareness, fostering a deepened commitment to transparency and accountability. We welcome the recent submission of pertinent documents and a partial report to the Office of the Solicitor General to investigate Chinese nationals who have fraudulently obtained Philippine citizenship to illegally acquire land and operate businesses in the Philippines. The report recommends the initiating of civil forfeiture proceedings against these individuals. In response to the Quad Committee's findings on extrajudicial killings allegedly committed by the state authorities during the previous administration's war on drugs and the involvement of illegal POGO operations in human trafficking and money laundering, our Quad Committee leaders have filed House Bill number 10986, or the Anti-Extrajudicial Killing Act, and House Bill 10987, or the Anti-Offshore Gaming Operations Act. The Anti-Extrajudicial Killing Act explicitly classifies extrajudicial killing as a heinous crime, ensuring that anyone, regardless of rank or position, found guilty of such acts faces appropriate criminal penalties. The Anti-Offshore Gaming Operations Act, on the other hand, aims for a total ban on all forms of offshore gaming operations in the country, with penalties for violations. These legislative measures address long-standing issues that have been condoned or even encouraged by certain individuals and they will lead to legal actions against those involved. But let us not be naive to the reality we face. Those who seek to hide the truth will always resist, and our efforts are not immune to attack. The Quad Committee and our young guns have become the target of those who prefer the shadows over the light. They attempt to undermine our work, casting aspersions and spreading false narratives to discredit our pursuit of accountability. Yet, as we stand here today, we reaffirm our commitment to this duty. We are here to do the work without fear or favor, on a mission to uncover the truth. No matter how uncomfortable it may be for some, we understand that this journey will not be easy, and that standing for what is right often means standing against the tide. But history has shown us time and again that no force can stand against the truth for long. Evil may cloak itself in power, influence, and wealth, but in the end, it is goodness that triumphs. Truth, though sometimes slow to reveal itself, will always, without fail, prevail. Sa mga nagtatangka, napigilan tayo sa paghanap ng katotohanan at katarungan, isa lamang ang sasabihin ko sa inyo, hindi kayo magtatagumpay sa masamang hangarin ninyo. In this house of the people, we are on the right side of history. And make no mistake, no matter the challenges, no matter the opposition, we will stand our ground. We will not yield to intimidation or pressure. We will not be swayed by the attacks hurled against us. Instead, we will press on with even greater resolve, knowing that people are behind us, that history will remember our courage, and that our efforts are guided by the principles of justice and integrity. Dahil unti-unti na nating nakikita ang liwanag at katotohanan, asahan natin na lalo pang titindi ang pag-atake sa ating institusyon, subalit hindi tayo matitinag. Hindi tayo papayag na muling bumalik ang panahon ng kadiliman at kasamaan. To those who may question our motives, I say this. We are here for the people, we are here for the truth, and for the enduring ideals of this republic. Our work transcends personal ambition. It is about laying the foundation for a nation that is free, just, and governed by the rule of law. We are building a legacy that our children and grandchildren can look back on with pride. This fight for truth is not for the faint-hearted. It demands courage, perseverance, and unity. We must remember that the road to justice is often fraught with trials. The forces of darkness will not relent easily. They will use every means at their disposal to obscure the truth, sow doubt, and weaken our resolve. But as long as we hold fast to our principles and remain united in this purpose, we will prevail. As we resume our session, let us move forward with the spirit of resilience and dedication that has defined this House, especially during our recent response to the typhoon. Let us advance with a sense of duty, a commitment to service and dedication. The people who have entrusted us with their hopes and aspirations. Today, as we stand on the right side of history, not just as witnesses, but as architects of change, the people are watching. History is watching. Let us not falter, for we hold the power to shape the destiny of our nation. Ladies and gentlemen of this chamber, we recognize that the House of Representatives cannot address every national issue alone. The Filipino people understand this as well. Nonetheless, as your humble steward, I urge each of you to make the most of our limited time before the 19th Congress adjourns and pass the most critical and urgent legislation. We were given this opportunity to serve the people with purpose, to uphold the principles of democracy, promote sustainable development, and as I emphasized in my closing statement last September, to build a Philippines where every citizen can live with dignity, opportunity, and hope. Esteemed colleagues, I call on you to cherish these remaining months of the 19th Congress, and together, let us bring it to a triumphant close. Tamang salamat, and may we move forward with courage, dignity, and unwavering faith in the triumph of truth above all. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas at mabuhay po tayong lahat.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated September 5, 2024 of the DOTR Undersecretary for Administration and Finance, submitting to the House copies of certain reports for the month of August 2024 and informing that the aforementioned reports were also submitted online to the DBM through the Unified Reporting System on September 5, 2024.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated September 5, 2024 of the NEDA Executive Director, Philippine National Volunteer Service Coordinating Agency, providing the House with a copy of their 2023 annual report.
To the Committee on Economic Affairs.
Letter dated September 9, 2024 of the COA Chairperson, furnishing the House with a copy of their consolidated report on the audit of the Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Funds for the year ending December 31st, 2023.
To the Committee on Public Accounts.
Letter dated September 10, 2024 of the DPWH Secretary, informing the House that the DPWH budget and financial accountability reports for fiscal year 2024 have been submitted to the DBM and the COA, and scanned copies of these reports have also been uploaded on their website under the Transparency Seal page.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated September 11, 2024 of the DTI Small Business Corporation, President and CEO, furnishing the House with a copy of the agency action plan and status of implementation on the audit observations and recommendations for calendar year 2023 and prior years.
To the Committee on Public Accounts.
Letter dated September 12, 2024 of the BSP officer in charge, submitting to the House a copy of their report on economic and financial developments in the Philippines for the second quarter of 2024.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
Letters dated September 19 and 23, 2024 of the Bank Officer 6, BSP Office of the General Counsel and Legal Services, transmitting to the House duly certified copies of certain BSP issuances.
To the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries.
Letters dated September 24 and 27 and October 2 and 8, 2024 of the Executive Secretary, Office of the President, transmitting two original copies of each of the following Republic Acts which were signed by the President. Republic Act number 12021, providing for the Magna Carta of Filipino Seafarers. Republic Act number 12022, Anti-Agricultural Economic Sabotage Act. Republic Act number 12023, imposing VAT on digital transactions in the Philippines. And Republic Act number 12024, Self-Reliant Defense Posture Revitalization Act.
To the Archives.
Reports dated September 25, 30, October 8, and October 9 of the Secretary General of the House of Representatives on enrolled copies of several House bills which were transmitted on certain dates to the Office of the President for His Excellency's consideration and signature pursuant to Section 18H, Rule 6 of the Rules of the House. Report dated October 8, 2024 of the Secretary General of the House of Representatives on enrolled copies of the consolidated versions of Senate Bill number 2587 and House Bill numbers 7400 and 6523 on the proposed Enterprise-Based Education and Training Framework Act, and of Senate Bill 2665 and House Bill 9034, the proposed Philippine Archipelagic Sea Lanes Act, which were returned to the Senate on October 7, 2024, and to be transmitted to the Office of the President for His Excellency's consideration and signature pursuant to Section 18H, Rule 6 of the Rules of the House. Report dated October 9, 2024 of the House of Representatives Secretary General on enrolled copies of the consolidated version of Senate Bill 2762 and House Bill 9794, Create More, which were returned to the Senate on October 8, 2024, and to be transmitted to the Office of the President for His Excellency's consideration and signature pursuant to Section 18H, Rule 6 of the Rules of the House. Committee reports. Committee report numbers 1236,
is overwhelming. As of October 30, the death toll has reached 145 nationwide, with 115 injured and 37 missing. I therefore thank President Marcos for declaring today, November 4, 2024, as a day of mourning for severe Tropical Storm Kristine victims. In Bicol, our agricultural sector has been particularly hard hit, sustaining over 2 billion pesos in losses. Camarines Sur alone accounts for 1.1 billion pesos of this loss, a heavy blow to our farmers and fisherfolk who depend on their harvest for survival. The storm has also left over 5,000 classrooms damaged, disrupting the education of countless students. Major infrastructure, including ports and critical roadways, has been destroyed or rendered impassable, severely hampering relief efforts and daily life. In the light of this devastation, I appeal to my esteemed colleagues here in Congress to take decisive action to help Bicol rise once again. We must work together to mobilize additional resources, allocate emergency funds, and initiate long-term recovery programs. This support is essential for rebuilding infrastructure, restoring livelihoods, and ensuring that the affected families and communities can heal and rebuild. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, esteemed colleagues, for standing with us in this time of calamity. May our collective efforts serve as a beacon of hope and solidarity for the people of Bicol and for all Filipinos who rise with courage in the face of hardship.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Bordado to the Committee on Rules for proper action.
Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. The privileged speech of the Honorable Bordado is referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Lordan G. Suwan of the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City to avail of the privileged hour.
The gentleman from the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, the Honorable Lordan Suwan, is recognized to avail of the privilege hour.
Mr. Speaker, distinguished members of the House of Representatives, ladies and gentlemen, I rise today as a matter of personal and collective privilege. The right of suffrage is one of the pillars of our democratic and republican state. It is the exercise of the people's sovereign will to govern and be governed by their chosen representatives. We vigilantly guard this process of exercising and determining the sovereign will of the people because the Constitution states that sovereignty resides in the people and all government authority emanates from them. Therefore, it is always imperative for a democratic country such as ours to have transparent, fair, honest, and credible elections. The first and one of the most critical steps in the exercise of the right of suffrage is the registration of voters. We have passed laws to ensure that eligible and qualified voters are not disenfranchised. We guarantee that we always conduct continuing registrations to preserve the right of suffrage of those who reached qualified age and those who moved domiciles. We implemented the biometric system to create a clean and updated voter list. We even made it convenient for our people to register through our Register Anywhere program. We bring registration centers to malls, schools, and other public venues. This is to make sure that our citizens not otherwise disqualified by law can exercise their right of suffrage. Yet evil does not sleep. The old and evil way rides with the change of times. Mr. Speaker, my fellow representatives, it has been reported that an anomalous influx of new voters is being detected in several barangays, municipalities, cities, and provinces throughout the country. No less than the Commission on Elections revealed the highly irregular surge of new voters in areas such as Batangas, Makati, Nueva Ecija, and Cagayan de Oro, to name a few. A 5% increase in new voters is normal, but a 10% or 20% increase is a red flag. It is even scandalous to see a 40% increase in the voting population, and there was a report of a 54% increase in voter registration in just one barangay. These increases defy normal statistical patterns. In the words of our COMELEC Chairman Garcia, is there a gold rush going on in these areas? Normally, the increase in voting population is mainly brought about by the following factors: migration of people due to increased development and economic activities, and a higher percentage of children or youth transitioning into adulthood. It has been observed that the barangays, municipalities, cities, and provinces with an unusual increase of voters registered no significant surge of economic, business, and employment opportunities. Their children or youth population is not big enough to remarkably increase the voting population beyond normal. On the other hand, an abnormal increase in the voting population is primarily due to unscrupulous individuals enticing voters to transfer registration with a promise of money, employment, assistance, or other services in exchange for a favorable vote for a particular politician. There is nothing new with this scheme. In traditional political maneuverings, we call them flying voters. Today, these flying voters have landed en masse and registered as new voters, but they will never establish domicile in that area. As proof, almost 40 newly registered voters shared a single address. We also found out, as did the COMELEC, that flying voters were able to register successfully because of the anomalous issuance of residence certificates in barangays. Our people's desire to change residences and register as new voters for reasons of opportunity, comfort, and convenience has become a convenient excuse for politicians to justify such actions, even though they are contrary to social and economic assessments. Even then, it is one thing to change residence, and it is another thing to register as a voter in your new location. Article 5, Section 1 of the Constitution sets the qualifications for the exercise of the right of suffrage. It says, suffrage may be exercised by all citizens of the Philippines not otherwise disqualified by law, who are at least 18 years of age, and who shall have resided in the Philippines for at least 1 year, and in the place wherein they propose to vote for at least 6 months immediately preceding the election. No literacy property, or other substantive requirement shall be imposed on the exercise of suffrage. The pretext of transferring residence for personal desire has become a cover for unscrupulous individuals and politicians seeking political advantage. This illegal practice must be condemned and stopped. It undermines the integrity of our electoral system. It deprives Filipinos of a legitimate representative and leader. It destroys the foundation of our republic. It subverts our democratic system by denying our people their true sovereign will. Mr. Speaker, I humbly urge this august chamber to conduct an investigation in aid of legislation on the anomalous increase of new voters in some barangays, municipalities, cities, and provinces. This investigation will uncover the scheme of transferring new voters to areas for political gain and expose individuals who orchestrated such illegal acts. Importantly, Mr. Speaker, it will help us identify the flaws in our existing election laws and allow us to craft new ones to protect the exercise of our people's sovereign will. I leave you with a quote from the ruling of the Supreme Court in People versus San Juan. It states that for the sovereign will of the citizen to remain undefiled at the starting level of its expression and application, every assumption must be indulged in and every guarantee adopted to assure the unmolested exercise of the citizen's free choice, or to impede, without authority valid in law, the free and orderly exercise of the right of suffrage is to inflict the ultimate indignity on the democratic process. Thank you.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Suwan to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The privileged speech of the Honorable Lord Suwan is referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that we recognize the Honorable Representative Edgar M. Chato of the 1st District of Bohol to avail of the privilege hour.
The gentleman from the 1st District of Bohol, the Honorable Edgar M. Chato, is recognized to avail of the privilege hour.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Our dear colleagues, 128 years ago, on this day, the 4th of November, the tranquil province of Bohol was graced by the birth of a person whose life has inspired many Filipinos, whose leadership has given tribute to Dagohoy's memory, and whose legacy has forever placed Bohol in the books of our country's political history. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I stand before you today proud and at the same time humbled to share the same heritage with the Philippines' 8th President and Bohol's most illustrious son, President Carlos P. Garcia. Born on November 4, 1896, in the municipality of Talibon. Each year, Boholanos celebrate the birth of this man by virtue of Republic Act 7448 as a special non-working holiday. November 4 is both a day of celebration and a day of reflection. Indeed, the life and legacy of President Garcia befits the honors given to him each year along the initiatives that inspire the new generation to live by his ideals and examples. Specifically for today, there were two prominent events that marked this year's celebration. Both happened early this morning. First, the National Museum of the Philippines made its historic opening of the President Carlos P. Garcia Gallery in its museum in Bohol. And second, the provincial government unveiled the marker of the newly renamed President Carlos P. Garcia Circumferential Road. As a precursor of these events, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, last June 15, 2024, the Garcia family turned over donated memorabilia of President Garcia to the National Museum in a ceremony held at the Spoliarium Hall of the National Museum of Fine Arts in the city of Manila. This was done by Jose Carlos Campos Garcia Campos, Carla Garcia Campos, and Dr. Isabel Zui Campos Bustos. They are the grandchildren of the late President Garcia and wife Leonila, and children of Linda Garcia and former Department of National Defense Undersecretary Fernando Nanding Campos. This representation was honored to have been invited as guest speaker during the momentous turnover ceremony of these families' heirloom in the country. In the said event, the Garcia family signed a deed of donation to the Library of the Philippines for the safekeeping of presidential papers, written reports, poetry, speeches, press releases, financial and legal documents, and photographs of President Carlos P. Garcia. As a gesture of gratitude, this representation in turn handed over to the Garcia family a copy of Republic Act 11987, the law renaming the Bohol Island Circumferential Road to President Carlos P. Garcia Circumferential Road. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I am honored to have principally authored this legislative measure, which was signed by His Excellency President Ferdinand Bongbong R. Marcos on March 21, 2024. In a separate letter signed by Jose Carlos Campos, addressed to then Senate President Juan Miguel Zubiri and Speaker Ferdinand Martin G. Romualdez, the Garcia family said, "We are happy and honored that the road encircling the whole island of Bohol, home of the late President, and our great-grandfather, is named after him. It is like him eternally embracing his beloved Bohol, which he loves so much." Allow me, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, to take this moment to thank this august chamber for the passage of this simple yet nostalgic bill, as well as His Excellency the President for his approval of the same. Campos recalls of his grandfather's great love of Bohol, the place that gave him birth, life, and call home. He said, "Well, to some, it may only be a road, but to us, his family, it is more than a fitting tribute to and lasting legacy of the Republic's 8th President to his home province. To us, it is a personal remembrance and a perpetuation of the memories of a father and a grandfather." With today's unveiling of the monumental marker of the newly renamed President Carlos P. Garcia Circumferential Road in Bohol, we have also requested the Department of Public Works and Highways to put appropriate street markers along this long road, as well as in all other road sections in various parts of the country named in his honor. As to other initiatives, Bohol continues to preserve President Garcia's advocacy through the CPG Scholarship Program, which began in 1996 through Provincial Ordinance Number 8 Series of 1996, which I authored as then Vice Governor of the province. In the same year, Republic Act 8224 was signed into law. This renamed the Circumferential Route Number 5, or C5, in Metro Manila as the President Carlos P. Garcia Avenue to immortalize his memory as Congressman, Senator, Foreign Affairs Secretary, Vice President, and President. The Garcia Monument in Taguig was then inaugurated with the Bohol Association of Metro Manila Incorporated in collaboration with the Metro Manila Development Authority. We also have the CPJ Foundation, of which I served as president. As governor from 2010 to 2019, the provincial government opened Cafe Caloy under the Provincial Economic Enterprise Management Office and maintained the CPG Ancestral Home, earlier called Bohol Museum, with some memorabilia of CPG kept and well preserved. Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, each year we celebrate President CPG Day with numerous activities that pay tribute to his life work in hope of guiding young generations, inspire love for country and for Bohol and the Filipinos to work together towards a more prosperous and bright future. As a representative of the Boholanos, my prayer is that this day may be a celebration not only for the whole province, but in the whole country as well, as we remember the President whose platform of government centered on the Filipino First policy. With the Philippines just recovering after the effects of World War II, President Garcia emphasized the following in his inaugural address in 1957 when he said, "The country now has the natural resources, the means, and the modern know-how to do it. We only lack the will to do it. Let us summon then from the spiritual reservoir of the nation and collectively will determine to make our country self-sufficient in foodstuffs, shelter, and clothing. Our freedom must be nourished from the wealth of our own soil and by the labor of our own manhood. This is the key policy of this administration in the field of economics. To this, I give my heart and hand." It was President Garcia who brought and implemented as an important governance principle the austerity program, which focused on wise spending, industry, thrift, trustworthiness, integrity, and honesty, as well on simple lifestyle for government officials. May this day also celebrate Filipino arts and culture, as President Garcia held the titles the Bard from Bohol and the Prince of Visayan Poetry for his eloquence and passion for the art, the Visayan poetry, or Balak. He initiated the Republic's Cultural Awards for exemplary Filipino artists, scientists, historians, and writers, and aimed at cultural revival, shaking off the influences of colonization and revival of the Filipino culture. Finally, Mr. Speaker, my dear colleagues, I end with the wisdom of President Carlos P. Garcia, which gave very, very significant impact for the present as well as the future leaderships, and encourage as well for the whole country. And I quote, "Together, we will meet our common problems and difficulties with a singleness of purpose. Together, we will overcome them." End of quote. It is indeed an honor to say before this august body, happy 128th birth anniversary of President Carlos P. Garcia, a man of art, a man of heart, a man of service. Thank you very much for your life, your leadership, and your legacy. Daghang salamat, maayong hapon. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Chato to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. The privileged speech of the Honorable Edgar Chato is referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that the gentleman from the Lone District of General Santos City, the Honorable Loreto Acharon, be recognized to avail of the privilege hour. So move, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from the Lone District of General Santos City, the Honorable Loreto Acharon, is recognized to avail of the privilege hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Leader. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, guests, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant good afternoon to all. I stand before you today to share a story of heroism and selfless display of courage above and beyond the call of duty. Last September 11, 2024, a local businesswoman in General Santos City was killed by two male suspects in broad daylight for no apparent reason, an incident that immediately prompted the General Santos City Police Office to conduct an investigation with the support and collaboration of intelligence units from the Police Regional Office and the 6th Infantry Division of the Philippine Army, Armed Forces of the Philippines. On the same day, the composite team of investigators were able to identify two individuals, both verified hired killers and drug traffickers, as persons of interest, a development that would not have been possible without the invaluable help of eyewitnesses. An arresting team was thereafter constituted with haste and a follow-up operation conducted, given that the whereabouts and location of the suspects were confirmed by civilian police assets. Tasked to seek, apprehend, and secure the suspects, the team chose to arrive at Purok Masagana, Barangay Baluan, closer to dusk to greatly reduce the chances of their discovery by taking advantage of the closing darkness. And fortunately, upon arrival at the house where the suspects were in hiding, our law enforcers were fired upon and a gunfight ensued, resulting to 3 fatalities. Both suspects died, while the lone casualty from the government was Patrolman Benjamin Donton de Ponturum III, a rookie policeman who joined the Philippine National Police sometime in January 2020 and was assigned at the City Mobile Force Company. He sustained multiple bullet wounds and was declared dead upon arrival at the hospital. Eyewitness account and the testimonies of the other members of the apprehending team revealed that Patrolman de Ponturum conducted himself with utmost bravery and professionalism. That for this courageous act, the Philippine National Police conferred on him the Medalya ng Kadakilaan as per General Order Number 63, dated September 12, 2024. The following day, or on September 13, 2024, the family of Patrolman de Ponturum was honored by the presence of no less than then Secretary Benjamin C. Abalos Jr. of the Department of Interior and Local Government, who personally delivered the message of sympathies of a grateful nation. We have seen and heard similar displays of heroism from our men and women in the uniform, and the records of their exploits are immortalized within the Philippine National Police and Armed Forces of the Philippines. Our history as a nation is an arcade full of courageous Filipinos, and our history books have no shortage of tales how these great men and women used their God-given strength for our country's benefits and advantage, because even during the long period of struggle under foreign rule, we have learned that greatness knows no age, gender, nor ethnicity. Mr. Speaker, distinguished colleagues, I share the story of Patrolman de Ponturum with this august chamber because his legacy is nothing short of similar to the stories of our men and women in uniform, who offered their lives and limbs in the service of our nation during the colonial occupation of Spain, the United States of America, World War II, and in the contemporary times from the Marawi Shades to the West Philippine Sea. This representation chose to honor him with the simple speech I am privileged to deliver in this chamber, so that his deed in service of the nation becomes part of the records of this great institution. As his voice in the House of Representatives, I can do no less. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mabuhay ang ating masisipag at magigiting na hanay ng kapulisan at ang ating mga sundalo. Mabuhay po ang Pilipinas. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Representative Loreto B. Acharon to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Is there any objection? The Chair hears none. The privileged speech of the Honorable Acharon is referred to the Committee on Rules. Majority Floor Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I now move that we recognize the Honorable Representative Dan S. Fernandez of the Lone District of Santa Rosa City to avail of the privilege hour.
The distinguished gentleman from the Lone District of Santa Rosa City, Province of Laguna, the Honorable Dan Fernandez, is recognized to avail of the privilege hour.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, my dear colleagues. I rise on a matter of personal and collective privilege. Noong nakaraan pong mga araw, akin po nabasa sa pahayagan yung posibleng pagbabalik ng Meralco ng 16 billion refund sa ating mga consumers. Laking tuwa ang aking naramdaman nang makita ko ang title ng balita dahil aking inaakala na ito ay bahagi ng ating pinaglalaban na mahigit 100 bilyong refund na dapat ibalik ng Meralco sa mga consumers. Subalit laking gulat ko, Mr. Speaker, mga kasama dito sa Kamara at sa ating mga kababayan, dahil nung binasa ko na ang laman ng balita, ay ito pala ay hindi bahagi ng ating pinaglalaban na refund sa mga consumers, kundi bahagi ng isang anticipated lapse period para sa 5th regulatory period for the year 2022 to 2026. On October 30, 2024, Meralco announced it might refund up to 16 billion once the ERC settles its much delayed rate reset. At sinasabi din sa news na ating nabasa that suspended ERC Chairperson Mona Lisa de Malanta, and by the way, siya po ay nakabalik na. Maraming salamat sa ating pong Pangulo ng ating bansa at kay Secretary Bersamin dahil nakabalik na po si Mona Lisa sa ERC. That the ERC has already decided to forgo the 5th rate reset. Wala na raw 5th computation. Wala na raw po yung ating pong pagkukompute na naman. And fix the average distribution charge of Meralco to 1 peso and 35 cents kilowatt hour. What? Wala nang computation sa port regulatory period. Wala pa ding reset sa 5th regulatory period. Kung natatandaan nyo, Mr. Speaker, noong 2019, dito po sa mismong plenary natin, inimbitahan natin ang mga ERC commissioners, si Chairwoman Agnes de Banadera, nangako sila na i-compute yung 4th regulatory period. Sinasabi nila, meron ng bagong computation para sa bagong taripa ng mga ating mga kababayan dahil mababa na ang dapat na singil ng kuryente. Naganap ba? Hindi po. Niloloko lang tayo. Niloko lang tayo. At nung dumating po ang 19th Congress, inimbestigahan din po natin to sa budget hearing. Kinwestiyon natin ang ERC. Sinabi nila na magko-compute. Nasaan na ang computation sa bagong taripa para sa ating mga mamamayan? Ang ibig sabihin mga kababayan, mula 2016 hanggang 2026, di na sila magre-reset. O sa mas magandang lengguwahe, di na sila magko-compute at ipipix na uli nila sa 1 peso and 35 per kilowatt hour. Totoo ba to, ERC? Alam nyo, pigil na ako sa inyo. Lalo tigit sa 3 commissioner dyan sa ERC. Si Commissioner Alexis Lumbatan, si Marco Romeo Puentes, si Commissioner Florecinda Baldo Digal, mula noon hanggang ngayon, hindi kayo nagbago. Kayo ang mga salot ng ERC na dapat pagbayarin sa paghihirap ng ating mga kababayan dahil sa inyo, kaya ang ating singil sa kuryente ay hindi bumababa. Dahil sa inyo, patuloy ang pagsingil ng mataas at doble ng Meralco. Ang mga katulad ninyo ang dapat singilin ng kongresong ito. Upang sa gano'y pagbayarin sa patuloy na pandaraya ninyo at sa inyong desisyong hayaan na lamang ang 2016 to 2026 ay i-consider na lapse period. Sadya kayong mapagsamantala. Di pa nga dumadating ang taong 2025 and 2026, sinabi nyo, lapse na agad. Bakit? Magkano ang dahilan? Malaki ba? Mr. Speaker, ang ganitong kapabayaan ng ating mga commissioners ng ERC ay hindi mapapahintulutan ng representanteng ito. They need to answer back to the Filipino people. Ang kanilang mga aksyon na nagbigay ng perwisyo sa ating mga kababayan sa mahabang panahon must be confronted by this Congress. Nais ko sana i-detalye sa inyo ang mga bagay na may kinalaman sa overcollection sa atin ng Meralco. In connivance with selected commissioners of ERC na umabot na sa lampas 100 bilyon dahil sa double inflation na singil nila sa ating regulatory asset base and the weighted average cost of capital. Dalawang inflation. Ang sabi ng Supreme Court, hindi pwede. Ang sabi niya sa ERC, sa desisyon ng Supreme Court, give the consumers electricity in the least cost manner. Pero ang ginawa ng ERC, double inflation, double interest, doble ang kita. Sa isang simpleng eksplanasyon ay nais ko ilahat sa inyo kung paano tayo sinisingil ng Meralco kada kilowatt hour na ito ay kinocompute sa pamamagitan ng tinatawag na regulatory period. At ito po ay naaprubahan ng ERC upang malaman magkano ang sisingilin ng Meralco sa taong bayan na naaayon sa tamang komputasyon kada 4 na taon. Mula nang maaprubahan ang EPIRA Law na siyang pinagmulan ng ERC na siyang gumawa ng polisiya ng taripa para singilin sa taong bayan, meron na po tayong 3 regulatory period. First, second, third regulatory periods. Dapat po ay nasa 5th regulatory period na po tayo. Pero dahil sila diyang di-compute ang 4th regulatory period at ang 5th regulatory period, upang sa ganon ay di mabago ang mataas sa singil ng Meralco, di ito magagawa ng Meralco alone. Kasabwat dito ang 3 kasalukuyang commissioners, dating commissioners at dating chairwoman ng ERC. Kaya we need to investigate these public officials. We need to find out the truth about this complex problem about reset process, about regulatory periods and other technical words in the computation of our tariff is really hard to understand. Mahirap po talagang intindihin. So allow me to explain and not to use any deep and technical words. Para simple lang po, mga kababayan and my dear colleagues. Mula noong 2012 hanggang 2024, ayaw nilang baguhin yung ating 1 peso and 35 cents per kilowatt hour. Diyan lang naglalaro ang binabayaran natin mula noong 2012 till now. Even the Supreme Court already declared and told ERC not to apply double inflation. Ibig sabihin, if double inflation, dalawa ang interest, dalawa ang kita. Sabi ng Supreme Court, wag. Dahil 1 peso and 35 ang sigil mula noon hanggang ngayon, umabot tayo ng lampas 100 bilyon ang dapat ibalik sa ating taong bayan. Isipin nyo na lang, mula noon hanggang ngayon, piso at 35 cents kilowatt hour. Ayaw mag-compute, ayaw mag-reset. Ilaps na lang daw para tuloy-tuloy ang kanilang ligaya. The Congress must not allow this, Mr. Speaker. Huwag natin itong hayaan. And these commissioners must be held accountable. Ang tagal na po nito. At matagal na rin nila tayong niloloko. Kalahati po ang sobrang singil nila sa atin dahil sa pangunguna ng ERC. Maraming buhay ang nasira, maraming trabaho ang nawala, maraming tao ang imbis na ibili ng pagkain ay binabayad sa kuryente. It's payback time, Mr. Speaker. It's time to get back and bring back the decency, honesty, and transparency in the Energy Regulatory Commission. Di kaya ni Chairwoman Mona Lisa Di Malanta ito mag-isa. Hindi kaya ito ni Commissioner Catherine Maceda. 5 ang bumoboto doon. 3 ang bumoboto against sa kanila. With this, Mr. Speaker, I move that these people must be held accountable. And this privilege speech be referred to Committee on Public Accounts. Maraming salamat po.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we refer the speech of the Honorable Dan S. Fernandez to the Committee on Rules for its appropriate action.
Bago po natin ilagay sa committee, gusto ko po munang makapagtanong ng ilan.
The Honorable Abante is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mukha yatang masyadong matindi ang condemnation ng aking kaibigan, Congressman Dan Fernandez. Hindi ko alam kung kanyang kinokondem ang Meralco o ang Energy Commission. So, sino ba po talaga, Mr. Speaker, ang talagang pinapatukuyan nyo rito? Ito po pong Energy Commission natin o yung Meralco?
Hindi naman po ito magagawa, Mr. Speaker, ng Meralco lang. At hindi naman ito magagawa ng ERC ng sila lang. Nabuhatan to, Mr. Speaker, to the highest level. And that's the reason why we need to invite these commissioners, these 3 commissioners that I mentioned, dahil mahabang panahon na tayo niloloko eh. As a matter of fact, Mr. Chairman, nakakausap ko yung mga yan. Pumunta po yan sila sa akin sa opisina, kasama si Chairwoman Mona Lisa de Malanta, upang sa ganun i-explain ang kanilang mga side. At pinangako nila sa akin na magkakaroon ng bagong reset, bagong computation, bagong weighted average cost of capital. Yung 1 peso and 35 cents na simula pa ng 2012, hindi na nila binago, Mr. Speaker. Anong dahilan at ayaw niyong baguhin samantalang sinasabi ng rules ninyo na every regulatory period, magko-compute ang ERC. Para nang sa ganun, makita ang lahat ng mga parameters, lahat ng parametro, bakit ito ang taripa na ibibigay natin sa taong bayan. Hindi nila binago. Anong dahilan? Dahil ayaw nilang bumaba ang singil ng kuryente. Ganun kasimple to, Mr. Chairman. Kaya nga sinasabi ko, ayoko nang gumamit ng mga technical words para maintindihan ng ating mga kasamahan, para maintindihan ng ating mga kababayan, 1.35, 1 peso and 35 cents mula ng 2012. Tingin mo, hindi na bago yun sa mga panahong ito? 2024 na? At ang gusto nila, Mr. Chairman, aside sa pinangako nila na magkakaroon na ng computation para po sa 2016 hanggang 2022, para sa 5th regulatory period, Mr. Speaker, meron po ngayon, ako nabalitaan, na sinasabi sa news, pati na yung 5th regulatory period, mula 2022 hanggang 2026, hindi na rin sila magko-compute. 1 peso and 35 cents na naman ang kanilang paiiralin, nasisingilin sa ating kababayan. And this is too much.
So, Mr. Speaker, ang gusto lang itanong dito, sino ba? Kayo po ay tumukoy ng 3 pangalan na masasabi nating culprit sa mga bagay na iyong sinasabi ngayon. Pakitukoy nga uli yung mga pangalan, Mr. Speaker.
So sila Commissioner Alexis Lumbatan, Commissioner Marco Romeo Puentes, Commissioner Florecinda Baldo Digal. Sila rin yung mga taong kausap natin dito noong 2019. Dito sa plenaryong to, na atin pong hinihiling sa kanila na ibigay ang bagong weighted average cost of capital, ibigay yung bagong computation ng bagong taripa ng ating mamamayan. Nangako sila na ilalabas sila. Nangako sila na ibibigay sa kongresong ito. Ano na po ngayon? 2024 na. Magte-2025 na. At ngayon gusto pa nila yung susunod 2022 hanggang 2026. Lapse na naman. Ibig sabihin, Mr. Speaker, 1.35 na naman. Hindi na nila binago at wala na silang intensyon na baguhin pa. Ang tanong, Mr. Speaker, bakit? Magkano?
So, ang ibig niyo sabihin, Mr. Speaker, ay itong 3 to ay dapat na ipatawag ng Committee on Public Accounts.
Yes. Yes, Mr. Speaker.
At hindi lang mo yan. Yan ba ay nababatay sa iyong privilege speech o ang Committee on Public Accounts ay tumawag din ng motu proprio investigation tungkol dito?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, because we need to investigate these public officials.
Kailangan din pa, Mr. Speaker, na patawag ang Meralco tungkol dito?
Well, I think we need to invite also the Meralco, but in public accounts, which is headed by Chairman Paduano, it deals with the public officials. And we need to make these people accountable. Malaman po natin, bakit? Bakit ayaw nyo baguhin yung 1.35? Anong meron sa 1 peso and 35 cents per kilowatt hour? Alam mo, Mr. Speaker, ang tao, kapag tinignan ang 1 peso and 35 kilowatt hour, titingnan nila, ang liit-liit naman yan. Ano ba naman yan? Pero, Mr. Speaker, sa isang kumukonsumo ng 250 to 300 kilowatt per hour, that is 3,000 pesos to 5,000 pesos already. Tipid na tipid yun. Bombilya, TV, refrigerator. Bakit hirap na hirap ang ating mamamayan?
Mr.
Dahil nga, Mr. Speaker, ayaw ng ERC, ayaw nilang mag-compute, ayaw nilang baguhin yung 1 peso and 35 cents.
So, Mr. Speaker, naniniwala kayo na merong kunayban ang ERC dito at ang Meralco?
Ako naniniwala, Mr. Speaker, that there is a connivance between the two because
Maaring
it
yung
takes two to
pong,
tango eh. Hindi po
Maaari
magagawa to nang wala ang isa't isa.
maaring pong 1 peso and 35 cents, eh, maliit po yun sa mga bilyonaryo na tulad ng may-ari ng Meralco. Pero napakalaki po niyan sa ating mga ordinaryo mga kababayan. Ano po, Mr. Speaker?
As a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, if I may, no? Dahil dito po sa tinatawag na financial statement ng Meralco, lumalabas doon na meron silang tinatawag na provision for refund. Taon-taon meron po silang tinatawag na provision for refund na almost 10 billion a year. So with this na meron silang provision for refund, ang title po noon ay tinatawag na for possible claims. So ibig sabihin, anticipated na po nila na meron talaga na silang ibabalik. And as a matter of fact, Mr. Speaker, nagbalik na po sila ng almost 48 billion. Pero these are not enough. Dahil ang computation po natin, doon sa 1.35, sobra-sobra po ang siningil nila sa ating mga kababayan. And it's just right and proper that we have to give it back to the Filipino people, doon sa mga Meralco consumers. At nakakalungkot, no? Dahil nga po, sa loob po ng maraming taon, as a matter of fact, ay 2016 pa ho yan, nung sinimulan natin ang 2019. Ano nung taon na po ngayon, pero wala pa rin po nagbabago. At I think, no? We need to invite yung mga public official dito para, ngayon, bakit ganun yung mga desisyon nila? At makikita po natin ang dahilan, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, sino po ba talaga nagsasuggest na ibaba ang cost per kilowatt? Ito po bang Meralco o ito pong ERC?
Hindi po. Ang Meralco po, sila po humihingi, nag-a-apply po yan. Nagkakaroon po yan ng application for reset. At pagkatapos po, ang ERC, sila po ay magko-conduct ng isang tinatawag na
Hello guys, lipat tayo sa Senate dahil wala yan. Ito maganda sa Senate. Walang bias. Sa Kongreso may bias. Puro kasinungalingan sa Congress. Kitang-kita na naloloko lang tayo doon. Thank you guys.
I guess yung parang sa'yo. Mr. President, we are ready to make our proposed amendments on Section 2, Declaration of Policy, subsection K. This is an amendment of Senator Gatchalian. This is on page 3, line 1. Delete the word reasonable and replace it with low cost. And on the same page, line 1, after the word gas, insert the phrase pursuant to Republic Act number 7638 or the Department of Energy Act of 1992. We submit, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you. The next item is also on Section 2, still on the Declaration of Policy, subsection M, also an amendment of Senator Gatchalian. On page 3, line 7, after the word aggregation, delete the phrase as a nationwide or grid-wide strategy in order to mitigate. And on the same page, delete line 8 and replace it with whenever economically beneficial for end users and to contribute to mitigating natural gas supply and price shocks.
Is there an objection? There being none, amendments approved.
A minute suspension, Mr. President.
Session suspended for a minute.
Please proceed.
Section 4,
Mr. President, I just
Yes,
got-
Majority Leader.
Just an interjection, just got hold of a copy of the September 25, 2024, and the previous amendment refers to line 7, letter M. Is that correct?
yes, Mr.
Just to
President.
spread into the record, say, the purpose of this amendment relative to the mitigation of end users' exposure to risks associated with natural gas availability. May we know from the sponsor the reason behind this, just to make this part of the records of this proceedings, Mr. President?
So this is an amendment of Senator Gatchalian, which the committee has accepted, and we accepted this with our understanding that the concern of Senator Gatchalian is that when we have aggregation, we need to ensure that the prices are beneficial to the consumer. So this is a proactive consumer initiative, which we accept, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. We now proceed, Senator Pia.
Thank you. Thank you for the question, Majority Floor Leader. So the next item is Section 4, Definition of Terms, subsection B on aggregation. On page 4, line 9, delete the word required and insert the phrase, DOE shall determine the requirements to be an aggregator and designate the same as well as the. And then on the same page, line 10, delete the phrase shall be determined by the DOE. And on the same page, line 11, after the word account, insert the phrase consumer welfare. We submit, Mr. President.
Any objection?
Mr. President, may we ask from the sponsor, her indulgence again, how would this now be read as amended?
Sure, Mr. President. So the entire section B shall read as follows. Aggregation refers to the activity of procuring indigenous natural gas, combining it with imported LNG, and selling the aggregated gas to gas buyers in the Philippines or abroad by a participant known as an aggregator. The DOE shall determine the requirements to be an aggregator and designate the same, as well as the minimum percentage of indigenous natural gas for aggregation, taking into account consumer welfare, the production levels of indigenous natural gas sources, the capacity of existing and future PDNGI facilities, and other relevant factors to ensure a stable and reliable supply of natural gas.
Thank you, Mr. President. So the lines now would probably occupy until line number 17. Am I correct, Mr. President?
Are we using the same, no?
Yes, yes.
We have the same copy.
I have a copy of September 25, 2024, clean copy. So na-adjust na po lahat yun, Mr. President.
All right. Are you done with your questioning?
Yes,
Majority
Mr.
Leader?
President.
Okay, there is a pending motion by Senator Pia with regard to the amendment of Section B.
Yes.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next item is still on Section 4, Definition of Terms, subsection Z, and this is on page 7, line 11, delete if and replace it with which are. We submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The next item is still on Section 4, Definition of Terms, and this is on page 8, line 8, delete if and replace it with which are. We submit.
Any objection? There
Mr.
being none?
President, just one
Majority Leader.
clarificatory question. So it will now read wherever economically. Can we have the complete amended phrase, Mr. President?
Yes.
If we delete the word if.
it's actually just a style amendment, which to this representation would be more accurate. The last sentence of that paragraph Z would read, "The plan shall likewise include all studies, programs, and policies for the promotion and development of the distribution sector which are economically beneficial for end users."
So it will now, Mr. President, just a clarification again. So it will no longer be transmission sector as originally written, but distribution sector. But the previous amendment,
No, Mr. President, we are only replacing the word if with which are.
so it's the if I'm not mistaken, Mr. President, I heard it right. So it's for the development of the distribution sector, not transmission.
Well, there's a couple of lines that have the same amendment, so perhaps the next one.
Because my copy, Mr.
The
President,
next one,
refers to transmission.
yes. No, Mr. President, that is in
Page-
subparagraph double E. So the first
Yes.
the first time I made that similar amendment is on letter Z, and that's distribution sector, which are.
Can I have a 1-minute suspension, Mr. President?
Yes, of course.
Mr. President, this representation is now clarified. We're referring to the previous page, page 7. And page 7 was the first amendment introduced, and it refers to the words distribution sector on line 11. I was referring to page 8 on line number 8. It's the same, Mr. President.
Yes. Yes. And we've made that proposal. I can't recall if the motion has been
Yes.
accepted.
Okay, there is a pending motion by Senator Pia. Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next one is still on section 4 on the definition of terms. It is on page 8, line 27. A similar amendment, delete the word if and replace it with which are.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
The next amendment is on section 4, also definition of terms. This is a Senator Risa Hontiveros amendment, which includes a style change. On page 8, after line 27, insert a new subsection JJ, which shall read as follows. JJ, renewable gases refer to hydrogen, ammonia, biomethane, synthetic methane, and other gases derived from renewable sources. And re-letter the succeeding subsections accordingly. We submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next amendment is Section 5 on powers and responsibilities of the DOE, subsection F. This is a Senator Gatchalian amendment with some revisions. On page 12, line 19, after the word regulations, insert colon and the sentence, provided that this applies to sales of shares that would result in a change in control of the permit holder or its ultimate parent. We submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Mr. President,
Yes,
Mr.
with the
President,
permission of Senator Kita.
apologize for
Senator Sherwin.
for this anterior amendment, Mr. President. This is still on page 9, Mr. President. Page 9, line 10, after the word DOE, replace the phrase which shall set the performance standard for TPA with the phrase for PGI facilities, provided that the TPA code for conventional transportation system shall be promulgated by the ERC.
What does the sponsor say?
Page 9, line 10. This is on the clean copy dated September 25.
Can His Honor repeat that?
Page 9, line 10.
Yes.
After the word
TPA?
DOE,
A DOE?
yes.
Okay, okay.
Replace
Insert.
the phrase, which shall set the performance standard for TPA with the phrase for PDNGI facilities, provided that the TPA code for conventional transportation system shall be promulgated by ERC. And the reason for that, Mr. President, is the conventional transportation system are considered public utility, and in this concept, whenever it's public utility, the ERC will regulate it, Mr. President. So that's the rationale why we included that. For virtual transportation system, that will be under the DOE, Mr. President. So that's the rationale, Mr. President.
There's an interjection, Mr. President. Can we ask the proponent to have the entire provision, the entire subsection be read in its entirety, Mr. President?
So, Mr. President, a third-party access code or TPA code refers to the code formulated by the DOE for PDNGI facilities, provided that the TPA code for conventional transportation systems shall be promulgated by the ERC. This is only insofar as the TPA code for conventional transportation system, Mr. President, the third-party access code.
And subject to style.
Yeah, but actually, Mr. President, it took me a while to study this, no, because it's technical, as we can all see. This amendment is not acceptable to DOE because per DOE, they are the ones that have the expertise when it comes to third-party access of natural gas. Under IPIRA, ERC regulates when it is power-related. So prior to power conversion, or if it is sold for non-power purpose, it is DOE that has the jurisdiction. Fuel like coal and petroleum is within the jurisdiction of ERC only when it becomes a component of power generation. So unfortunately, we can't accept it, Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. President, just a clarificatory question, Mr. President. For the reason why we propose this, because ERC is already currently the regulator of power, Mr. President. And in the proposal, it will also be the regulator for pipelines, Mr. President, because currently, there's no regulator for pipelines. So it will now fall under DOE, ERC, Mr. President.
Pipeline is under DOE, Mr. President, unless we change the rules, but pipeline is currently under DOE.
For the policy, Mr. President, but for the regulation of pricing, regulation of use, Mr. President, so...
It's not covered by the mandate of ERC.
Mr. President, can I ask for a minute suspension?
Session suspended.
Mr. President, upon consultation with our colleagues, the Majority Floor Leader and the former Chairman of the Committee on Energy, Senator Gatchalian, we have agreed that the best thing to do right now is to leave the provision as is, wherein DOE will technically be the regulator for the time being, because the proper instrument for the inclusion in the power of ERC to regulate these pipelines would be in the amendment to the ERC, the EPIRA law, which is already ongoing with the committee that this representation chairs. So the two gentlemen are amenable to that, Mr. President. So we will leave the provision as is.
All right. Noted.
Thank you. Thank you to the good sponsor.
Mr.
Thank you.
President, the Deputy Minority Leader is seeking the floor.
Yes.
I move that she be recognized.
Yes, with the permission of Senator Cayetano, the Deputy Minority Leader, Senator Risa is recognized.
Salamat po, Mr. President, and salamat to the good sponsor and the gentleman from Valenzuela and the Majority Leader. Just a point of clarification, Mr. President. Nalito yata ako. I thought I recalled na yung previous session, hindi po natapos yung period of committee amendments. Dahil at that time, the chair was, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I thought, I remember that the chair at that time was still considering which of our proposed amendments ay, kumbaga, aampunin na niya as committee amendments. So I just would like to see clarification. Ano po ba yung parliamentary situation ng bill na ito? Because I came back into the session hall thinking nasa period of committee amendments pa rin tayo. But then I realized when the good gentleman from Valenzuela interjected, napatanong po ako, Mr. President, nasa period of individual amendments na po ba?
Yes.
So just to clarify the parliamentary situation to this representation, Mr. President, I raise this point of inquiry. Salamat po, Mr.
We're in the
President.
period of individual amendment, Mr. President. Yes. No, we started with individual because this is a sub-bill already.
Substitute bill.
Yes, a substitute bill.
So we are in the period of individual
Individual.
amendments, Mr. President,
Yes.
for the record. All right. Salamat po, Mr. President, and to the colleagues on the floor.
Thank you, Senator Risa. You may now proceed, Senator Pia.
Okay. Our next amendment is on Section 5, Powers and Responsibilities of the DOE, new subsection M. This is a Senator Hontiveros amendment with some styles change. On page 13, after line 12, insert a new subsection M, which shall read as, develop a comprehensive national strategy with input from the National Renewable Energy Board, parentheses NREP, close parentheses, for integrating renewable gases into the energy mix and outlining the roadmap for their adoption. Re-letter the succeeding subsection accordingly. We submit.
Is there an objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. The next amendment is Section 5, Powers and Responsibilities of the ERC. This is a Senator Gatchalian amendment with revisions. On page 13, delete lines 18 to 24 and replace it with, the powers of the ERC shall be in accordance with the provisions of the EPIRA on the organization, operation, regulation of the power industry, and such other powers as may be given to it under applicable law. We submit.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Mr. President,
Yes.
anterior
Yes, with the permission of
amendments, Mr.
Senator Cayetano.
Mr.
Senator
President,
Gatchalian.
on page 12, line 19, after the word regulations, insert the phrase provided that this also applies to sales of shares tantamount to a change in control of the permit holder or its ultimate parent, provided further that assignment or transfer shall not be allowed near the end of life of a PDNGI facility. So move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
I'm checking, Mr. President, because we already read a similar amendment into the record. I'm just checking the difference between what we read and what His Honor is proposing. Sales of shares. Dinagdag niya. So ito additional.
Itong ano.
Mr. President, there were concerns, I believe the proposal of His Honor now was included in the submissions made to us, no?
Yes, Mr. President.
And that part raised some red flags among the team in our discussions with the Department of Energy, because it may be tantamount to a violation of the constitutional provision on right to property. Does His Honor have any thoughts on it? This representation is very open. Our goal is really to accommodate as many of His Honor's amendments, especially given his experience. But I just wanted to raise that. And does His Honor have any? Would His Honor like to elaborate so we can weigh in on it?
Yeah. Well, Mr. President, this stemmed from the experience, our experience from Malampaya, wherein the sellers of Malampaya and the buyers of Malampaya argued that there was no change in entities because only shares exchanged hands. But we all know right now that there was a change in control and even management of that entity. So to circumvent the government approval, what these entities are doing is to exchange shares and argue that there is no change in the corporation. So,
but that part, Your Honor, has been accepted.
okay, Mr. President.
That part is accepted, so we don't need
okay,
to...
Mr. President. The
next-
proviso,
the
Mr.
next
President,
one.
actually the
next
proviso
one.
came
The
from...
end of life.
Yeah, the end of
Yeah.
life. The proviso came from a research that we conducted in the U.S. wherein some of the assets, for example, nuclear assets or even natural gas asset, at the end of life, they will sell it to a shell company to release them from the obligation of winding down or spending for closure expenses, Mr. President, or decommissioning expenses. And then that shell company will declare bankruptcy, Mr. President, releasing the original company of its obligation to decommission the asset, Mr. President. And that has been I read several articles to that effect, Mr. President, that happened in the U.S. So just to avoid a scenario wherein there's a decommissioning requirement, but that entity will circumvent that requirement by selling the assets to a shell company.
Yes.
Mr. President.
So, Mr. President, I'd like to react to that. This representation totally agrees with the concern raised by His Honor. We really wouldn't want that to happen because today we are very much aware of the obligations, very, very important obligations that will only occur towards the end of
Yes,
life. Yun nga yung mga
correct, Mr.
decommissioning. It's very relevant in the energy sector, no, in the mining sector,
Correct,
things like
Mr.
that.
President.
So this representation would be inclined to accept this amendment if it refers to a shell company. I'm just thinking also, though, of what if there is a potential buyer who is interested in pouring in more funds. Like in the case of Malampaya now, they're going to drill again. So talagang end of life yung current, but they're going to drill again. And there's a new investor who wants to come in for that reason. Let's say the current investor has already invested what it could or has somehow invested somewhere else. I wouldn't want to deprive us of that opportunity of bringing in a fresh investor who truly has good intentions. So subject to style with his honor.
Yes, Mr.
Can
President,
his
we're
honor
open to
work
that.
with us
Yeah,
on-
Mr. President,
on that?
my proposal really stemmed from circumventing the obligation
Yes,
for
of course.
decommissioning, Mr.
So-
President. So
so
if we
let's
can
work
narrow
with
it
that.
down
Okay.
to that,
Yes.
objective, we're open to that,
Okay.
Mr. President,
So
subject to style.
with that in mind, let's ask our staff to work while I'm going through the other amendments, and then maybe towards the end, we can already have something.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. So,
So we will hold it in abeyance?
yes, Mr. President, please.
All right. Please proceed to your next amendment.
So we go back to... Tama ba? All right. So our next amendment is Section 6, Powers and Responsibilities of the ERC, and this is a Senator Gatchalian amendment with revision. On page 13, delete lines 18 to 24 and replace it with, the powers of the ERC shall be in accordance with, I've read this. I think this, I'll just read it again. This is what I think was on the table when His Honor made his intervention. The powers of the ERC shall be in accordance with the provision of the IPIRA on the organization, operation, regulation of the power industry, and such other powers as may be given to it under applicable law. We submit, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Mr. President, just a clarification.
Yes, Majority
Would
Leader.
this now probably encapsulate in the near future, in the event that the IPIRA law is amended, the future powers of IPIRA as amended? Would the language include?
Yes, under applicable law. So I believe, Mr. President, when we do amend IPIRA, this will still be, they will be consistent, Mr. President.
Or delegated to it, the pursuant to this act? Subject to style, Mr. President, I think that's correct.
Okay, I'm happy to have any other style change to reflect future amendments to IPIRA.
Okay,
We
please
can proceed, Mr. President.
Yes.
Mr. President, I have an anterior amendment, Mr. President. On
Senator Gatchalian.
Yes, thank you. On page 13, lines 19 to 20, delete the phrase
18 to 20.
and section 11 of RA 11646, otherwise known as the Microgrid Systems Act.
That has been accepted already.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you, Mr. President.
So the next item is on Section 15, Powers and Responsibilities of the National Commission on Indigenous People.
Page.
On page 17, line 15. After the word upon, delete the article the. That is all, Mr. President, we submit.
Any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Mr. President, with the permission of the sponsors, the deputy minority leaders is likewise seeking the floor.
Okay.
move
With
that
the
she be
permission of
recognized.
Senator Cayetano, Senator Tiveros recognized.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. With apologies to my colleagues on the floor, I wish to raise, originally I was going to raise these anterior amendments after the good chair and the gentleman from Valenzuela finished with the individual amendments. But upon consultation with the majority leader and the good majority leader's advice to raise them now before we go further in the bill, I will do so. I'd just like to make of record, Mr. President, that I submitted these amendments before this clean copy as of September 25 was drawn up. But I'm, as of today, still waiting for feedback regarding my proposed amendments. So I apologize that my anterior amendments, yung pagination nila, saka yung line, will not correspond anymore to the clean copy as of September 25. Kasi ito pong anterior amendments ko were based on the previous clean copy, and these anterior amendments to which I was still awaiting feedback on up to today. So just for the record, Mr. President. So if I may...
If I may
Yes,
also,
Mr.
before
President.
Her Honor continues. So Her Honor is correct. We received the written amendments from different senators, including Her Honor Senator Risa Hontiveros. And what you will what you will see in the clean copy now and the additional amendments we are making, which is following the chronological order, are those that we are accepting. So the amendments that have already been read, that has passed the section, have not been accepted. But Her Honor is free to put it on the floor and we can give an official response. But just to advise that that is really the situation. We tried to accept as much as we can for the consistency of the bill and pursuant to its objective. I apologize that we're not able to accept all, but we're happy to have Her Honor explain if she wants. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. President, and to the good chair.
Maybe if Her Honor can make reference to the section also to make it easy for
Yes.
us to follow.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you also to the good chair for actually completing my understanding of the earlier query I raised as to the parliamentary situation.
And if I may
of
just
the bill.
add
Yes, Mr.
also,
President.
it's my attending the energy conference in Singapore that aided me in also understanding so much of the energy industry, which admittedly is new to me. I think we only have one resident expert, Senator Gatchalian, who has been handling this for many years. So a lot of Her Honor's amendments became clearer to me upon listening hours and hours to these experts in energy on chemicals and very technical terms. So we will continue to try.
Mr. President, just to interject, what the Deputy Minority Leader now would be doing is to restate her previous proposed amendments, and the good sponsor will just give a direct answer on why such amendments were not accepted. Just
Yes,
for the record, Mr.
yes,
President.
they were submitted. We acknowledge the submission in writing, which is a practice that we have, and we accepted what we could. But again, we are happy to hear Her Honor state them. If she wants to explain, we will listen.
Thank you very much, good sponsor and good majority leader, Mr. President. So at least to state them for the record, just so that they are of record, yung ilang proposed amendments. And again, I apologize na hindi ko po ma-cite in connection with the updated pagination and lines, except for one of these, which refers to a proposed amendment to Section 3. So on the old page 3, the old line 11, I had proposed to, after the word contracts.
Can Her
Yes,
Honor
Mr.
mention
President.
just section, and then is there a subsection, a letter M, letter L?
I'll try to complete that, Mr. President. I wonder, Mr. President, if it would be better to go back to my original intention to propose these at the end of the ongoing discussion on
Yes.
the committee amendments, so that on the individual amendments rather, so that
Yes,
I can, out of respect to the chair and the good gentleman from Valenzuela, make my proposed amendments for the record complete.
Yes, the chair
Thank
would
you,
like
Mr.
to agree
President.
with the proposal of Senator Hontiveros, just to expedite the proceedings.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you,
Senator
good
Lisa.
colleagues.
Okay,
Senator Pia, you can now proceed.
thank you. The next amendment, Mr. President, is a new Section 16 on the powers and responsibilities of the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute. This is a Senator Risa Ontiveros proposal. On page 17, after line 18, insert a new Section 16, which shall read as Section 16, Powers and Responsibilities of the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute, parenthesis, per P, close parenthesis, pursuant to Republic Act Number 11572, otherwise known as the Philippine Energy Research and Policy Institute Act. The per P shall conduct research and development on renewable gas technologies, including production, storage, and distribution with support from the DOST and PNOC. Renumber the succeeding sections accordingly. We submit, Mr. President.
Is there an objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Still on section 16, on page 18, delete line 1 to 8 and replace it with, the DOE shall be the lead agency in the development of aggregation in the country. The DOE shall determine and designate the aggregator and issue the applicable policies for the implementation thereof, adhering to the principles of economies of scale as well as energy transparency, competitiveness, security, and reliability. The DOE may direct any of its attached agencies and instrumentalities to participate in aggregation activities. We submit, Mr. President.
Is there any objection? There being none, amendments approved.
Mr. President, on
Yes,
page,
what is the
also
pleasure
on
of
the
Senator
same page,
Garcia?
Mr. President, and this is, Mr. President, a key amendment that we're introducing. On page 17, line 22 to 24.
Is that an anterior amendment, Senator Gatchalian?
Yes, and it's an anterior amendment, Mr. President. So on line 22 to 24, delete the phrase organization for the purpose of this act. The PDNGI shall consist of the following sectors: supply, storage, and regasification, transmission, and distribution of natural gas, and replace it with the word aggregation, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
So, Mr. President, the proposal here is to specify clearly that this provision tackles the concept of aggregation, and later on we will move on into the concepts of aggregation, Mr. President.
So what changes? I mean, it's suspension because we already have a provision
Yes.
on this, so I have to compare what the difference is.
Se-
Mr. President?
Yes, session suspended.
Mr. President, we accept the amendment of Senator Gatchalian.
Thank
Okay,
you.
is there an objection? There being none, the amendment is approved.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you to the
Thank
good
you.
sponsor.
So we continue on to 4P. Ito na. The next amendment is Section 21, Authority to Obtain Information. On page 19, line 8, delete the word "to," and on the same page, line 9, replace Section 19 with Section 21. We submit, Mr. President.
Any objection? There being none, amendment is approved.
The next amendment is on Section 22. On page 19, line 14, delete the phrase "subject to Section 19 of this Act" and replace it with ERC and PCC. On the same page, line 18, after natural gas, insert the sentence, provided that it is consistent with the state's policy of ensuring energy security and consumer welfare. And on the same page, line 19, after the word supplier, insert the phrase "and aggregator." And on the same page, line 19, after the word fair, insert the phrase "and open." On the same page, line 24 to 25, delete the phrase "and optimal guaranteed utilization volumes for plants." And on page 20, line 4, delete the phrase "this includes requiring electricity supplier to source A," and delete the remaining lines 5 to 7, then replace it with this sentence: "Pursuant thereto, the DOE shall formulate mechanisms that shall prescribe a mandated minimum percentage of the electricity demand of generation companies and/or distribution utilities to be sourced from indigenous natural gas. Such minimum percentage shall be reviewed and adjusted by the DOE as may be necessary." And on the same page, line 8, before the PDNGI facility, insert the phrase "subject to viability." We submit.
Is there an objection? There being none,
Subject to style, Mr. President, the provision appears to be too long.
yes.
Perhaps
The amendment.
Yes,
the amendment-
exactly. It is one paragraph. Normally, when it's that long, I just say replace it and substitute it with this paragraph. So I asked my staff to show it so everybody can appreciate the change in that section. We can do that, Mr. President.
All right. Is there an objection? There being none, amendments is approved subject to style.
Mr. President, just a
Senator
clarification. Has a good sponsor amended page 18, line 1? 18, line 1?
We deleted line 1 to 8 on page 18 and replaced it with the paragraph that I read into the record.
Mr. President, I have an amendment on page 18, Mr. President, lines on page 18, line 1, after the word agency, replace the word "in."
Can I read or give you a copy, because I've deleted lines 1 to 8. It has already been accepted and
And the
replaced it
amendment
with
has
a
already been
paragraph.
approved.
So His Honor can look at the I'm very happy if His Honor still wants to amend it further, but I already made the proposed amendment.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll just wait for the clean copy.
I can just give, I can hand it to you so we
Okay,
can go
Mr.
back to it anytime. Your staff has a copy, Your Honor, if you'd like to take a look at it and make the amendment based
Yep.
on the current wording.
Mr. President, this is the amendment with the word "pursuant." I heard the word "pursuant" a while ago.
1 minute
No,
suspension,
that's
Mr. President.
different.
Session suspended. Please resume.
The next item is on section 27 on cross ownership on page 21, line 9. Delete uncompetitive and replace it with anti-competitive. And on the same page, line 11, delete section 13 and replace it with section 14. We submit, Mr. President.
Before we act on it, Senator Gatchalian, have you withdrew your motion to amend?
Well, Mr. President, we'll just wait for the clean copy so that we can take a look at that new provision that was inserted. And if need be, we can add some more provisions, if need be, Mr.
Okay, there is a pending motion by Senator Cayetano. Is there any objection?
19, no?
There being none, amendments approved.
Mr. President, I have an anterior amendment, Mr. President. On page 19, after the word DOE, in page 19 in line 14, okay na ba yan? Okay na yan. Okay. On page 19, line 18, after the phrase,
Line 18 or line 14?
line 18.
18.
Page 19, line 18, after the phrase by gas-fired power plants shall insert the phrase undergo competitive bidding to ensure least cost fuel in line with Republic Act number 9136 and whenever indigenous gas price is equal to or lower than imported natural gas, then indigenous gas shall. So move, Mr. President.
What does the sponsor say?
I need a moment to digest the amendment, Mr. President.
You want a minute
We can
suspension?
amend for a minute, Mr. President.
Mr. President, perhaps the proponent can read the proposed amendment starting from line 17 in its entirety, Mr. President.
Senator Gatchalian, you wish to read in your amendment?
Yes,
beginning
Mr.
with line
President.
17?
I'll read the entire proposed paragraph, Mr. President. Procurement and utilization of natural gas, including without limitation by gas-fired power plants, shall undergo competitive bidding to ensure least cost fuel in line with Republic Act number 9136 and whenever indigenous natural gas price is equal to or lower than imported natural gas, then indigenous natural gas shall be prioritized. An indigenous natural gas supplier shall provide fair access to its natural gas supply in a non-discriminatory and transparent manner through physical supply, and so on, Mr. President.
Okay, we will just wait for the...
No, I'm ready, Mr. President. I'm ready to respond.
Yes, please.
Mr. President, as this representation has been explaining, the purpose of aggregation is really to ensure energy security. And I liken it to the rice supply. Pag wala ho tayong sariling rice supply, we're dependent on foreigners. We're dependent on imports. And wala tayong mapapakain sa sa mga kababayan natin pagka nagkagera yung mga supplier natin o magalit sila sa atin. So we always want to ensure, and that is why we have endless debates also on the importance of food security, starting with rice. So it is the same thing with energy, Mr. President. As I have been explaining since I started defending this bill, the demands, our energy demand will continue to increase. This is worldwide. Yun nga po, kakagaling ko lang sa isang conference, and worldwide, energy demands will increase. Ang example nga binibigay ko po sa ating lahat, kasi mga kaedad ko, maaalala nyo to, natuto ako magbukas ng delata, dipihit yung can opener. Ngayon yung can opener, kailangan pa di baterya. Tapos, lumaki din akong paypay. Ngayon, pag lumalabas ako, yung mga tao, puro battery-operated na yung handheld na paypay. So, everything now is powered. That's just the way we roll nowadays, Mr. President. So, the energy supply will be very much in demand. Energy will be very much in demand. And the only way we can assure our people of a steady energy supply, and that means reliable, yung hindi pa brown out, at yung presyo, medyo kontrolado natin, is may sarili tayong supply. I don't think it is that difficult to understand that kung may sarili kang supply okay ka. So on that note, again, a learning I had during my recent conference in energy, ang dami ng bansang gumagawa ng aggregation. Kasi nga, kukunin nila yung supply ng iba-iba kasi parang ano ho to eh, parang yung futures market, yung nagbibid ho dun sa mga grain, sa mga stocks, agricultural products, very common in other countries. So ganun din yung gas. People, the supply will be bidded out. Yung gas company, yung Genco, magbibid siya for his supply 20 years ho yan. 20 years. So right now, pag bid niya, tingin niya ito yung okay na presyo, magbibid siya for 20 years. Wala akong bumibili ng gas na patingi-tingi. Meron, pero ba't nyo gagawin yun? That's very vulnerable if you're going to just bid for your supply for this month, this quarter. You buy wholesale and you buy long term. That's how it's done. So the purpose of aggregation now is to ensure that may market ang indigenous supply natin. I will put on the screen again the chart that shows that historically, lagi namang mababa. When I say lagi, let me correct that. Predominantly, mababa naman ang presyo. Yan ho yung color blue. Yan ang presyo ng indigenous gas natin. The blue line. Kung ako ho ay runner, kayang-kaya kong takbuhin yun. Dire-diretso lang yan. Tingnan nyo naman yung color red. Ang tindi ng ups and downs. That is the imported supply. That is data from That is data from 2010 to 2024, dear colleagues. So I'm not inventing this. This is historical data. So I will go back. What we are trying to do here in the natural gas bill is to promote exploration and development of our indigenous natural gas. And for us to promote it, we want to make it inviting to investors. Open to all po to, kahit sino pong investor na may ganyang kakayanan, may ganyang kapasidad at may ganyan ding resources para mag-invest ng indigenous gas. They can come and invest so that tayo naman magkaroon tayo ng security of energy because we have our own indigenous natural gas. So, in this specific provision that His Honor is would like to amend, hindi ho natin matatanggap yan because precisely we need to ensure na may buyers, bibili ng mga generation company ang ating indigenous natural gas. Yes, there are slight changes once in a while, pero very minimal po siya. And again, I go back to the comparison with rice. Di syempre, unahin natin ibenta yung sariling atin, yun munang gagamitin natin. So, with all due respect to our colleague, that amendment cannot be accepted.
Mr. President, let me just explain my amendment, Mr. President. And thank you for the explanation. Mr. President, this provision deals with procurement and utilization of natural gas. And in the proposal, and let me just read it, procurement and utilization of natural gas, including without limitation by gas-fired power plants, shall be prioritized over imported natural gas, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, without any bidding, we don't know what prices this prioritization will be charged to our consumers, Mr. President. So all we request is for a bidding to be conducted so that consumers will be assured that the best possible price will be passed on to them. And as an added come on, if the indigenous gas is equal or below, then they will be prioritized. So, Mr. President, what we are proposing here is to have that competitive bidding so all of us will know what prices are power plants buying in terms of gas supply, Mr. President. So that is the proposal. Without this, Mr. President, then the indigenous gas suppliers can charge any price. No, they can charge, there's no restriction whatsoever in terms of pricing. And we have to remember that this gas price will be passed on all the way to the end consumer, Mr. President. So we're just protecting the consumers in this proposal, Mr. President.
Mr. President, we already have a provision in the bill that provides, specifically it says, provided that it is consistent with the state's policy of ensuring energy security and consumer welfare. I've also repeated this a number of times during the period of interpellation because it is our concern that the consumers get the best possible prices. So, hindi naman balak ng ating regulatory agency na mataas yung presyo na makakarating sa mga consumers. Pero ang gusto natin, mabalanse natin yung energy security and consumer welfare. So that is the reason for we believe that this provision is sufficient to guard the consumers' rights, Mr. President.
Mr. President, once again, thank you for the explanation. Mr. President, we saw the provision on consumer welfare, but consumer welfare is a very wide aspect, Mr. President. You can talk about service, you can talk about delivery of electricity. Pricing is just an aspect of consumer welfare, Mr. President. So to make it narrow, to make sure that from step